everybody. Welcome to Friday night is Organ Music Night, and a night of 60s and 70s music from around the world for two reasons. One, I have had an incredibly busy week and have not had any time to sit at the organ and do any practice whatsoever. And two, I have cut my fourth finger with a piece of glass, not deliberately, a rather nasty nick, and it's already bleeding actually after one piece of music. So this could be an interesting night tonight. We are back in Munich, back in St. Margaret's Church, the new sample set by Piotr Grabowski, an absolutely deliciously, wonderfully fun sample set of an enormous, wonderfully fun instrument. And yeah, we're going to have some fun with some 60s and 70s music tonight. That involves very little practice on my part. I am cheating, but I'm going to try to create an entertaining concert for you nonetheless, as long as my fingers will allow me. Now, a few months ago, I cut the end of my third finger off my other hand, and I managed to play around that. But my fourth finger, believe it or not, everyone else out there will say, oh, you don't need your fourth finger when you're playing, not much. But for me, my fourth finger is actually quite an important one because my technique uses my fourth finger quite a lot. Anyway, we started there with a wonderful piece of music from Germany, believe it or not, Marmor, Stein und Eisen bricht. I'm not sure how you would translate the meaning of that title. The actual title translates as marble, stone, and iron breaks, or break, if you want plural. All of those things break. I'm not sure what it's all about. It's all about our love will not break, but all of those other things, traditionally hard things, marble, stone, and iron, difficult to break, but our love won't break, don't worry about it, and so on and so on. That's the idea. It's a fun piece of music. I'm not sure anybody outside of Germany might have recognized that tune. It's a grand piece of music. It became really famous in the 80s, but it's actually older than that. It's from the 70s. So there you are, originally. 70s and 60s tonight, and we're going to have some fun and games, including... where shall we go next? Where shall we go next? Do you know, there's all sorts of places we can go. Obviously, there's going to be some Beatles later on. And there are lots of anecdotes tonight as well. A lot of these tunes we're going to play have some kind of personal connection to me in a funny sort of way, whether it's the tune itself, which is unlikely because I was born in 1973, so it's unlikely that I will have a personal connection to the tune itself, but maybe the composer of the tune or the performer of the tune. Here's a piece of music that's very famous and is going to get me into all sorts of copyright problems this evening, which is why I want you to all go and hang out in the box office and buy a ticket. There you are. 5 of you already have today. Only 3 of you have this evening. 2 people chipped in earlier today. They are people who regularly buy tickets once a month, which is very kind of them. So you will see their names there as well. That's Michael B. and Julie M. They do monthly tickets, which is very kind of them. But I've left it in there so you can see that. We're going for our big goal tonight. Can we make it? I don't know. Let's counteract the copyright, as it were, and see what we can do with this piece of music. I think you might recognize it. Let me quickly change my registrations here and get something a bit more sort of suitable. I think if we put all of those on... yeah, that's pretty good. But we have to get rid of that. We have to get rid of this. Now, let's see if we can work out. If anyone can work out the personal connection between me and this next tune, you know me better than you think. I have a little tale to tell you about this piece of music, though. I think you might recognize it. Sing along if you know the words. the original organ part from A Whiter Shade of Pale. How many of you were smoking a cigar at that point? I deliberately played the organ part of that and not the actual tune itself, in the hope that the copyright pirates might not pick up on the entire thing. Now, let's have a look. Were Fraser's parents mentioned in this song? No, Robin, they weren't. Right, let's have a look. Did anyone mention any ideas they may had? You can always have connections to tunes that existed before you did. Well, yes, I'm talking about personal connections though, and not just something that happened when that tune was happening in the background. Actual connections to the people involved with these tunes. In this case, let's have a look. Anyone? Whiter shade if pale, whiter shade of pale. Blah blah la ba dum 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 dee. Anyone? You're all talking about what the song's all about. Ha ha. Well, no. Who wrote the song? Anyone know who wrote the song? Cam. I'm guessing you played this at a concert along with Gary Brooker et al. I knew Gary Brooker. Yes, I did know Gary Brooker very well, in fact, through a mutual friend. We'll come on to him later. Gary Brooker, yes, Gary Brooker wrote this song a long time before it became a hit. A long time before it was recorded. He wrote it together with the other guy from Procol Harum, who was Keith Reid, wasn't it? Wasn't it Keith Reid? Jez, you'll know this kind of stuff. Keith Reid, I think it was. And Keith and Gary wrote this tune. And they wrote, they had various... Matthew Fisher. Well, mentioned Robin. Yes, Matthew Fisher was not the writer of the song at all. Matthew Fisher was merely the Hammond organ player. Matthew Fisher is a wonderful guy, still very much around. He is... How old is Matthew? He's going to be 80 this year, I think, if he isn't already. Matthew Fisher. I never met Matthew Fisher, but wonderful thing about Matthew Fisher was he was the only classically trained member of the band. And when they came to recording this tune, he basically improvised the organ part that made the song so bloody famous. And throughout his career with Procol Harum, he pestered Gary Brooker all the time to get writing credit for the tune and maybe earn a penny or two. He was just a band member, so he was earning his wage as a band member, but he wasn't getting any royalties. And he was very annoyed by this fact throughout his entire life. And I think 20 odd years ago, he took them to court and finally won and was going to get some royalties from it. And then Gary Brooker and co, they appealed and tried to stop it. And they lost. They lost, and however, they didn't pay him any back royalties. It was only royalties from that moment on. So every time someone plays A Whiter Shade of Pale, Gary Brooker's not with us anymore. I don't know about Keith Reid. Does anyone know about Keith Reid? But Matthew Fisher is very much still with us, and he earns a pretty penny every time that tune gets played and recognised, and so on and so on. Fun stuff. Now, a lot of people think it was Gary Brooker that played the organ solo because in later years, Gary did play it. Gary Brooker, a wonderful piano player and so on himself. Very talented guy, actually. But apparently, when it came to money, Gary Brooker was not a very nice person at all. Now, I cannot comment on that. I only knew him through other people. I never had any direct connections to his financial dealings, shall we say. I always thought he was a wonderful, fun guy to be around. Very much a gentleman. Knew his stuff. Very good player. Very, very good player indeed. And an absolutely wonderful guy, I thought. So there you are. So there's my little personal connection to A Whiter Shade of Pale. There you are. Bet you didn't know any of that. There's going to be some of this stuff anyway. Nice arrangement. Exactly. Well, the thing is, it was all very much arranged. No, it wasn't. It was improvised. Matthew apparently improvised the whole thing, and it became so famous. That's why I played the organ part there. Yeah? You can see how intricate. I mean, it's simple, but still strangely intricate, almost Bach-like. And that was the idea. That was the whole point behind it. There you are. Some interesting information regarding A Whiter Shade of Pale. Now, the next piece of music I'm going to try to hide a little bit, again for copyright reasons, but maybe you will recognize it. You'll probably recognize the harmonic movements involved. They are very, 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 very easy to spot. I want that. No, I don't. Sorry, I want that and that, and then I want that and not that. This should work. Do I want that? No, I don't think I do. See if you can work out what this is. If you get this, I'll be very impressed. Well done, Jez. Life on Mars, David Bowie. Bowie. In his younger days, he called himself David Bowie. In his older days, he called himself David Bowie. So we never know. Let's call him David Bowie, because that's what he called himself in later life. Right. Anecdote. Can anyone tell me what my personal connection is to David Bowie? None of you, I don't think any of you know this story, so I'm going to take my headphones off and read the chat for a minute. Does anybody know, not that song, but David Bowie, anyone know what my personal connection is to David Bowie? This is a weird one. Well, they're all kind of weird when you think about it, but this really is a weird one. See if you can work it out. I shall have a small drink while you're writing in the chat. Yes, Life on Mars was that one. There's wonderful stuff. I love David Bowie's music. At the time, it was way ahead of its time. When you listen to it now, it's all rather good. Harmonically, very brilliant. Now, the guy always said he had no clue about music. He just sort of felt his way around chords. And so on and so on and so on. Cam Platts, I must have told you that story, because that's the true answer. I met him on the street in New York, not necessarily by accident. I don't know how you meet someone by accident. But yes, we met on the street in New York. I was wandering through the streets of New York. This was a very long time ago. When would this have been? 2000 and... I can't remember. Very early 2000s. I was wandering through the streets of New York. On my own, I had had a fight with my wife. And I was wandering through the streets of New York, and I remember walking sort of down towards Greenwich Village, and I remember in the back of my head there was sort of that building there. There was a building with a red painted, a very famous building, the red painted wall on it. A whole side of the building was painted in red, and that was famous because that's the building where David Bowie lived. And as I was sort of contemplating the fact that, gosh, David Bowie lives in that building, who should walk towards me in a great big overcoat, like you would imagine him, but David Bowie himself? And I was sort of obviously staring at him while I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if David, oh, hold on, that is David Bowie. And you know that kind of, I don't know if you've ever had that before, when you see someone famous that you obviously don't know, but you recognize them and you sort of stare at them in that funny way. And famous people are used to this, so they know how to react. And he just sort of went, hello, like that. And I sort of went, oh, hello. And I said, and I remember very vividly saying, you're not going to believe this, but I was just looking at that building there thinking, that's the building where David Bowie lives, isn't it? That's very interesting. And then suddenly you're here. And he sort of turned around and looked and said, no, I don't live in that building at all. I live in that building over there, a completely nondescript building somewhere near that one. He said, but it's great that everybody thinks I do live there because they all hang around there looking for me. And I said, yeah, but you're here. So, there was nobody else on the street. It was a very bizarre thing, because nothing was happening in New York on that street at the time. It was like some sort of, you know those dreams you have where everything sort of stands still and you were having a conversation with somebody? It was a bit like that. But we were in the middle of New York. There was traffic all over the place. There's no people. Very bizarre. And we chatted for quite a long time, and eventually we got onto the subject of, and you, what do you do? And I told him what I did. And then I told him who I had been performing music with over the years and things like that. And he looked at me and he said, why have I never met you before then? And I said, I don't know, our paths have obviously never crossed. And we chatted for, I don't know, a good, 20 minutes, maybe more, I don't know. And then he sort of said, well, look, I'm terribly sorry, but I have to be somewhere. And sort of wandered off. And I stood there and just sort of watched him go. And then I carried on my day and went somewhere. I can't remember where I was going, but it's a very, very bizarre experience. So there you are. My time meeting up with him, meeting up with him purely by chance, whether it was by accident or not, I don't know, and having a lovely chat with him. There you are. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. Life on Mars. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe we headed off to Mars. Anyway, a fight with your wife. Hopefully, no, that was my first wife. It was a very long time ago. My first wife and I fought all the time, which is why just why that didn't work out. But anyway, never mind. Different story, different era, different times. But yes, there you are. There's my little David Bowie story. Now this piece of music here, this is another German piece of music. Now the guy who sang this piece of music is long gone. I'm actually trying to work out what the personal connection is here. I do have a personal connection to this tune, to the melody. I also have a very personal connection to the title of this tune. The German people in the audience will recognize it. The others might not. Let's find out. Wine, griechischer Wein, by Udo Jürgens. Udo Jürgens was a very famous, Udo Jürgens, a very famous Austrian pop singer of the 70s in German-speaking world. He lived in Switzerland and paid no tax for most of his life, and actually ended up in lots of trouble for not paying any tax. That's what everybody remembers Udo Jürgens for these days. But that was his wonderful title called Greek Wine, griechischer Wein. A wonderful piece of music. Is Griechischer Wein? Oh, for heaven's sake, what? Nobody got it then. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Splendid, splendid. Come taste the wine. Was that come taste the wine? Yeah, that would make sense. That makes sense. Good, fun piece of music. Now, there are two connections I have to this piece of music. Number one, I used to conduct an orchestra, and we played medleys of tunes by Udo Jürgens, and this was my favorite part of the medley, where I could go completely crazy doing sort of little Greek dancing style while I was conducting it. That was good fun. But if anyone out there, he said, stroking his beardy chin, if anyone out there can tell me what my connection to Greek wine is, and what that connection has to do with my life today, I will give you a prize. Cam, you're not allowed to answer this. Cam knows me best, I think, so you're not allowed to answer. But anyone else? I wonder. I'll give you a couple of minutes there. There are some really good tunes by Udo Jürgens, by the way. Aber bitte mit Sahne, which is kind of good. I used to nick it from the church, said Mike King. Well, no. Greek wine in a church, that's highly unlikely. Jez, Vanessa's Greek restaurant. Well done, Jez. There you are. Cam told you that, didn't he? Cam sent you a quick message and told you that. That's right. Vanessa used to own a Greek restaurant in the town of Montabaur, not far from here. I used to live in Montabaur there, and I used to visit that restaurant. And Vanessa and I, we took a fancy to each other, and the rest, as they say, is history. So that's right. And she used to ply me with Greek wine, you see, Retsina, that lovely. I love Retsina. I love Retsina. So that's where that came from. So yes, so Greek wine. Occasionally, just occasionally, Vanessa will allow me to have a bottle of Greek wine at home, and we can have some fun. We can have some fun reminiscing about the old days. Yes, let me make sure I got that right. Cool. Now, the next one, I don't think anybody knows the next one. I wonder if anyone, I don't need the music for this, do I? I don't even have it here, but never mind. I wonder, would anybody recognize my connection to this one? I don't think I've ever mentioned this story to anybody, apart from the people who were there at the time, obviously. See if I can give you a clue, but that won't help. It won't help, so I'm just going to play it anyway. Fritz, over to you. What could my connection to Bridge Over Troubled Water possibly be? Yellowbird, were you on the same railway station with a ticket to your destination? Nope. Raspberries, it took me a while to remember the title. Gosh, we're getting old, aren't we, folks? I bet no. Well, I honestly don't think I've ever told anyone this anecdote. It's another weird by a meeting. Well, not quite by chance this time, but almost. The anecdote is thus. This was years and years and years ago. I was living in Bonn, in Germany. And the first apartment, the first flat I had in Bonn was down by the riverside, down by the River Rhine, very close to the St. Joseph Church with its wonderfully famous organ, very close to the Kennedy Bridge, which went over to the main part of the city, and very close to a little concert hall, a venue, basically, a little venue, concert hall. But this Brückenforum, it was called, the Bridge Forum, if you want, Brückenforum. And this little thing, I don't know who the fixer for all these jobs were, but he got the most amazing people to perform in this little venue. And it was a tiny little venue. I mean, we're talking 300-400 people maximum. And whoever the fixer was, they got some amazing people to play there. And one day, purely by chance, my little piano, my little upright piano at home was being tuned by my friend Piotr. Piotr was one of a family of piano builders and tuners in Bonn. And Piotr still is the best piano tuner in the universe. Nobody is ever better than Piotr. And Piotr came to tune my piano, and I would say, oh, anything exciting, anything, happening, anything going on? Have you, any wonderful classical? He used to do all the classical concerts in the Beethoven Hall. He would tune the piano for them and things like that. But he also did, most of the concert venues in and around Bonn and Cologne and places like that. Brilliant piano tuner, absolutely wonderful, and a good guy too, really good, nice guy. Anyway, and Piotr said, oh yeah, I've got one really interesting one coming up next week, actually just across the road in the Brückenforum. Art Garfunkel is coming to play. And I shook my head and said, what, Art Garfunkel's coming to play? Yeah, I'm tuning the piano for him. He wants me to be there. Sorry, he wants to be there when I'm tuning the piano because he likes to have certain notes of the piano tuned in a certain way. He preferred the top end to be tuned a certain other way than you would normally do it as a standard way, or it was the bottom end, or so, probably the top end. But anyway, and I just sort of looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, you're going to meet Art Garfunkel?" And he said, "Yeah, do you want to come along?" Yes, I do. So the following week, Piotr arrived, and because I lived just across the road, he parked the car. There was a little car park for the Brückenforum just opposite the door to my apartment. And he parked his car, came out and rang my bell and said, right, come on, let's go and meet Art Garfunkel. And we did. We wandered into the Brückenforum, and this guy, the big tall guy with the hair and the nose, wandering around the stage waiting for the piano tuner. And Peter's ruse, well, Peter spoke perfect English, but his ruse was he didn't speak very good English, so he asked his friend Fraser to come along and be the interpreter. He made that up on the spot. That was not arranged. And I sort of, you're taking the piss here, my friend. And Art Garfunkel said, yeah, no problem at all. What do you do? So I told him what I did. I was playing mainly jazz music at the time and also playing the organ and things like that. He wanted to come and see the organ in St. Joseph in Bonn Boy, where I was playing at the time. But he didn't have time. He didn't have time. He was there for the sound check. He was going to an interview. He had to go back to his hotel, get ready for the concert, and then he would come play the concert. And immediately after the concert, he was going to the airport to fly to wherever he was going next. He had no spare time, not even a minute of spare time. So we never got the chance to do that. But it was so close, I almost took him to see the organ in St. Joseph in Bonn. But we sat on stage and we just chatted forever. Piotr was doing his job tuning the piano in silence. And we sat sort of at the edge of the stage and just chatted about life and music and exciting things. And he was a really, really interesting, intelligent person to talk to. It was amazing. So there you are, my day or my afternoon with Art Garfunkel. Ha ha ha. What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? Let me have a look at my list. I have a list. I have a list of goodies. Where's my list here? Actually, shall we do this one? Shall we do this one? Let's see if we do this one. This is a difficult one again. Although that's not true. I think I've mentioned this anecdote a few times. Again, I'm going to play around with the harmonies, change them a little bit, disguise them as much as I possibly can. I think what we'll do is we'll have this registration here this time. This could be a little weird, but let's add the tremulant to it. Let's have those. In fact, let's have that as well. We'll couple it down to there and we'll get ready to add something there. I'm not sure, well, you will recognize it, but I wonder will you recognize the story behind it. I think I have mentioned this one before. Let's see if you've been paying attention over the years. Haha. I love that piece of music. Oh, right, there's a few things cropping in tonight. Matt Leach actually started the show with some fan funding. Matt put in a couple of things there. Please play Help by the Beatles. I'm sure we can do that in a moment. And now Robert has joined in on the old fan funding, as it's called, or super chats. Thank you very much. And there are also, well, 12 of you on the old box office there. Don't forget 2 arrived earlier today. But yeah, 14. Nice one. Right, that was, of course, Stairway to Heaven. Who performed Stairway to Heaven? Let me see. Anyone get all this in the chat? I'm sure some of you did. Led Zepp recorded this mostly at Headley Grange. All right, well, that's good. Anyone? Stairway to Heaven, get on those stairs. Good, you all got it. That's good. Kago Meshuko, with all of these cool interactions, do you ever ask yourself, what is my life? Oh yes, many times. Many times. This one is a very different one. This is much more much more personal, this one. Peter Haslinger, what a wonderful name. Spicy harmony and bass. Yeah, cool, gotta have some of that. Led Zepp recorded this, right? So Led Zeppelin, yes. Peter Rasmussen is here from Denmark. Hello. I'll say hi to you all in a minute, but let's see if anyone knows what my connection is to Led Zeppelin. Dusty says Jimmy Page. Well, you'd be right with Jimmy Page, but can you take me any further than that? Can you take me further than that? Cam, you probably know this one as well. Are you allowed to answer this one? I think I have told you this story before. There are many stories involving Jimmy Page, actually. So I wonder. These stories go back to my childhood, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. These stories go back to my childhood and to my dad, of all people. Anyone? Right. Let's give you the old... and Cam's keeping quiet. All right. There are so many. Let me tell you one of them. I'll tell you the most fun one, actually. My dad used to work for the North of Scotland College of Agriculture, and he was basically a vet pathologist. And animals would be, if animals died under bizarre circumstances, they would be taken to Dad, and he would perform post-mortems on them. And most of his work was farm animals, yeah. And in and around Inverness, there are many farms. So Dad knew all of the farmers and all of the landowners around Inverness. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Now, at the time, a certain Mr. Jimmy Page, owned a very famous. If you can tell me the name of the house and the history of the house, you'll be without looking up the internet. If anyone knows this, then good for you. But Jimmy Page lived near Inverness for a long time. And he lived in a very famous house. He didn't work. He owned. This is Dusty Miller here. He owned Boleskine House. Now, Boleskine House, for those who, it just sounds like a house, and it is. It's a nice house. It's a private family home these days. A perfectly normal family live there nowadays. But it was the house of a very famous, bizarre person over 100 years ago, a guy called Aleister Crowley. Remember Aleister Crowley? He was a bit of a sort of a, shall we say, an occult fanatic. I think that's probably the nicest way to describe it. Did my dad work at Boleskine House? No. But we regularly visited Boleskine House when Jimmy was there, because Jimmy owned quite a bit of land around the shores of Loch Ness, and that bordered on various farms. And occasionally animals would escape from their farms, or we had wild animals as well. And occasionally, exciting things would happen, and Dad would get involved in the area, and my dad was a very well-known person in the area anyway. And eventually there was something involved on the land around Boleskine House, and Dad met Jimmy Page for the first time. And this, this happened on occasion. Jimmy Page would be mentioned. And eventually, my dad and I used to go fishing on the shores of Loch Ness, or on all the little lochs around Inverness and things like that. And occasionally, we would bump into Mr. Jimmy Page while we were out and about in the evenings. And I got to know him a little bit. I was quite young at the time, so it didn't really count. But anyway, he was just this sort of mad, very famous musician that everybody sort of avoided because he lived in this crazy haunted house. All the ley lines of the world crossed at Boleskine House, all this kind of stuff. If you're into the occult, you will know what I'm talking about. And there were all sorts of stories and sort of fantasies regarding Boleskine House. Now, years later, when I got my driving license, we used to like to impress the young girls, take them out in our cars. And the idea is we would go and you'd take them out to Boleskine House because it was scary. It was supposed to be really haunted and full of sort of weird and wonderful occult creatures and phantoms and ghosts and ghoulies and things, and they would come out and eat you and all that sort of nonsense. Anyway, and we used to scare the living daylights out of these young girls in the hope that, you know, we would advance our knowledge and so on and so on and so on. It never works, never worked. But anyway, there was one particular evening when I had arranged to go out that way anyway, and I'd picked up some hitchhikers. Now this was something I used to do occasionally. I worked in Inverness for a while in a hotel, and on my way home, we lived on the way out towards Loch Ness, but on the south side. On the south side, yes. Anyway. Yes, on the south side of the loch, sorry, yes. And I had to think about that for a minute. And occasionally you get hitchhikers who would want to go out to a place called Dores, D-O-R-E-S, on the shores of Loch Ness. There was a big beach there. And you would have to go past Dores to get down to Boleskine House anyway. So occasionally pick up some hitchhikers. And on one particular occasion, I picked up some hitchhikers. And they were, I'm not sure where they were from, somewhere Scandinavia, let's say Sweden. How many? There were three of them, 2 girls and 1 guy. Lucky guy. And they were backpacking and they had tents and all that sort of stuff. And they wanted to go and camp on the shores of Loch Ness. Did I know a nice place for them to camp? And I said, well, I'll tell you what. How about I take you to roughly the area of the most famous haunted house in the universe? I told them the whole story. And of course, they knew the story. They knew the story of Aleister Crowley and all these wonderful things. And they knew that this guy from Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, lived in this house. Fair enough. So on we drove out that way. And purely by chance, as we drove past where Boleskine House is, you could see it. You can see the house from the roadside. Purely by chance, Mr. Page was standing at the front door having a smoke, as he did. Standing at the front door having a smoke. And I stopped the car and got out and said, "Oi, Jimmy, I've got some Swedish victims for you." At which point he went, "Oh, great, I'll be back in a minute." And went back and came out with a sword. I'm not making this up. He came out with a sword and came down to the car and said, "Right, which one shall we have first?" And the 3 of them in the car, they leapt out of the car, disappeared. We never saw them again. Nothing was ever heard about that incident either. No police were involved. No one was called. They just disappeared. And of course, Jimmy and I used to smoke in those days too. So we had a little smoke together and a laugh. And we did look for them. I mean, said, "It's only a joke, people. It's only a joke." We sort of ran around looking for them for a while, and we didn't find them. So I often wonder what happened to those tourists that night or that evening. It was a summer evening, so it was very late. It was still very light in that part of the world. Madness. Those were crazy old days. Loch Ness. So people who lived around Loch Ness in those days there were a lot of famous people who lived around there in those days. I was also quite good friends. Actually, I was drinking buddies with Terry Nutkin. Who remembers Terry Nutkin? Anyone remember Terry Nutkin? He lived at the south end of Loch Ness, Fort Augustus, for a long, long time. And when he used to come into Inverness to do business or take the train somewhere or whatever he had to do, I would let him park for free in the hotel car park where I worked, because he was Terry Nutkin, for God's sake, one of the most famous people on children's television in those days, Animal Magic and all the rest of that. He was a lovely guy, and Terry and I, we got to know each other very, very well, and we used to go out drinking regularly. I used to play in a jazz band. We used to play regularly on a Tuesday night in a pub in Inverness, and Terry would quite regularly come down to these gigs, and it was great fun. Lovely guy. And we used to see him out shopping in Marks and Spencer. He would go for his food shop in Marks and Spencer's in Inverness, and there would be a lot of people would stand around and look and ask if they could maybe have an autograph. It was really quite cool. Terry Nutkin, there you are. I don't think he's alive anymore, is he? Squirrel Nutkin, Terry Nutkin, or Terry Nutkins, wasn't that his name, something like that? But yeah, anyway, that's the guy. No, not Squirrel Nutkin. Who was the guy in Animal Magic? Johnny, somebody or other, wasn't it? And Terry was his sidekick. Oh, those were fun old days. But yes, our crazy Jimmy Page stories. Yeah. There are many more of those, but yeah, some bizarre ones. Anyway, there you are. So there's my link to Stairway to Heaven. He is, yes, I thought I heard he had died. Johnny Morris, thank you, Mike. That's the one, Johnny Morris. There you are. Mr. City Sounds is here. Hello. Haven't seen you for a while. Haha, nice to see you back again. Right, we'll have one more, then I'll have a chat to you over in Thaudience, and we will we'll take it from there. Where shall we go next? I don't want to make it too obvious. But let's go here now. Let's go back to the United States of America, and we'll have this one. Got to be careful with this piece of music. I get lots of copyright claims coming in tonight, so yes. Let's see if we can hit 30 old ticks in the box office tonight, because that will counteract any copyright claims that come in for this evening's entertainment. Here's a wonderful piece of music written by... Someone said Urza. Yes, that's symbolic, by the way, this evening. I've left that light off. That was a present from Urza Maya. Urza is not well at the moment. Urza is not with us this evening because she's not well. So I've deliberately left the Urza light off tonight. That's symbolic. Anyway, Urza is the one who usually does our timestamps and comes up with all the composers of these wonderful tunes and things like this. Now, this tune was composed by somebody very, 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 very famous indeed, but it was composed by two people. And if you can tell me who the second one was without looking it up, you have to know these things without looking them up. Don't look them up on the internet. I think it's great if people just know facts and we can share the facts that we know rather than having to look them up on the internet. There's no fun in that. Wonderful piece of music. I love playing this. We played it a couple of years ago when the composer in question passed away. And I wonder if you know my personal connection to this one. I definitely mentioned this one. Right, we all know that one. God only knows. The Beach Boys. The Beach Boys, and of course Brian Wilson. The other guy who wrote it, did anyone know it? It was a guy called Tony Asher. There you are, I didn't know that. Never heard of Tony Asher before. Never heard of Tony Asher before? I think we have. Yes, the Beach Boys. Now, what's my connection to the Beach Boys? It's a very easy one. The best live concert I ever visited in my life was the Beach Boys live. Years ago, the Beach Boys were on their, what was it, their 50th anniversary tour or whatever it was. And they played one concert in Germany, in Mönchengladbach, in the old baseball stadium. And I was given tickets for a Christmas present. I think I was probably one of the youngest people in the audience, but it's the best live concert I've ever been to as an audience member in my life. It was absolutely, there was no support group, it was just the Beach Boys, and they played the entire program on stage. These old guys with, you know, there were young guys in the rest of the band, but all these guys, they'd gotten back together, they'd stopped fighting and arguing and squabbling, and they'd gotten back together for this sort of 50th anniversary tour, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. It's the best concert I've ever seen in my life. It was just so good. The audience was, it was a German audience, and for the first hour and a half, or maybe even 2 hours of the show, they just sat on their seats and didn't do anything. They clapped at the end of pieces, and they clapped when they recognized the next piece coming in. And then at some point, the security at the concert, they said, "Come on, people, enjoy yourselves. Get up, go up to the stage and bounce about." And as if sort of one magical voice, someone said, "Come on, folks, let's party." Everyone stood up and just stampeded down towards the stage, and everyone sort of jumped about and had a wonderful time right in front of the stage. And because I was one of the younger people, I was quite close to the stage anyway, I got right to the stage. It wasn't a very high stage. I was, you know, like here. Stage was like here, and I was standing right at the stage, and I could see and smell the Beach Boys, and it was absolutely amazing just to be standing there. And I was standing between Mike Love and Al Jardine, and over on the piano, Brian Wilson was playing, and all the other ones were there. Bruce on the keyboards, and the other guy on the guitar, whose name escapes me at the moment, the guy who could really play a brilliant Chuck Berry on the guitar. And it was just absolutely fantastic. And something in my tiny mind tells me that I managed to make eye contact with Brian Wilson once during that evening. I mean, Brian Wilson was spaced out of his balls, you know, he was always gone. But there was something, I can't remember what piece it was, some piece that he was singing, and he looked directly at me at one point. Normally he's just all over the place. He looked directly at me, and I was looking directly at him, and our eyes met and locked for a while, for enough for it to be memorable. And that was one of the highlights of my musical life, that I can say I interacted with Brian Wilson. I never got to meet the guy really. I did kind of, after the concert, you know, try to get backstage, and you know, they were really good. They all came down and spoke to everyone, and I had a chat to a couple of them. Al Jardine, who talks to everybody. Al Jardine's the nicest place, and Bruce Johnson, isn't it? Is it Bruce Johnson? The keyboard guy. And again, absolutely wonderful, really lovely guy. And sort of Brian was wandering around, and I thought, wouldn't it be great just to have a few sentences with Brian Wilson? But I said hello, and there was a kind of response. But yes, the Beach Boys. Absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It was quite interesting because, you know, when I was growing up, there was a lot of Beach Boys played in our house. Dad was a great fan of the Beach Boys, and a lot of Beach Boys music was played. So it was always, I knew those songs since I was a small boy, and suddenly hearing them all live, it just, you know, just conjured up so many wonderful memories and things like that. It was wonderful. Absolutely great. Did they smell like the beach? No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Yeah, crazy stuff. Crazy, crazy stuff. That was a lovely night. I remember that. Those days are gone now, of course. Sadly gone. Brian is no longer with us. and so on and so on. But there are still a couple of sort of Beach Boy groups going out and doing their thing. Mike Love, the cousin of the Wilsons, Mike Love, they all sort of fell out of these. They fell out over money. What else? There we are, going back to Gary Brooker and Matthew Fisher again. And then Mike had his version of the Beach Boys and went and did his thing, and then all the others had their version of the Beach Boys and did their thing. And there were sort of two parallel Beach Boy groups going out doing things at the time. Wonderful, wonderful. Crazy. Love it. Now the next one. Hold on, we'll do the next one in a minute. I'm going to say hello to folks in the old chit chat here. And let's see who we've got. So let's go back in the chat a bit. Let's go back to Cam Platz. Hi, Cam. And I hope Kristen's listening. Kristen's not at home at the moment, but I hope she's listening in as well in her part of the world. So yes, good evening to the Platz gang. Mike King is here. Hi, Mike. Rue is here. Hello, Rue. I haven't seen you in the chat for a while. Splendid. Tim is here from sunny Australia, or cold Australia. Jez is here from Wales. Nice. Who else is here? Let's have a look. Robert Varner from New Jersey. Peter Rasmussen from Denmark. We know that. Martin Wiedemann from the north of Germany. Hi, Martin. And Sheila as well. Hello to both of you. Bodensee at the very south of Germany. Hello, Ingo, down in the very, very south of Germany. Lovely to have you here. Carl Kepner. Hi, Carl Kepner, my favorite name in the Gartshore Gang. Sir Toby is here. Hi, Toby. Julian GC from Shreveport. How are you doing? Johannes84 is here. French Horn is here. Our friend Heiko. He's in Hamburg at the moment. Hello, French Horn. Heiko in Hamburg. And hi to Heikedina and Richard up there as well. Hope you're all well, having a wonderful time. Dusty is here. Hi, Dusty. Dusty Miller. Nice to have you. Kago Meshuko is here. Who else be here? Let's have a look for some new names. Canned Music. You are evil. Yes, very good. Have I ever seen The Monster? No, I've never seen The Monster, but my mother claimed she has seen The Monster. That's another story for another day. Mr. City Sounds is here. Hello, Mr. City Sounds. Lovely to have you. Friedrich Raffaele is here. Good evening. Good. Jeff is here. Jeff Ryle, that's Mr. Trevithick there. Thank you so much for your email. Lovely to hear from you. I will reply in due course. Thank you very much. John Castle is here. Hi, John. That's lovely that you are here. Good. Who else is here? C. Northway. C. Northway. Where did C. Northway go? C. Northway just disappeared. His name just disappeared. There you are. C. Northway. Hello, C. Northway. Lovely to see you. So there's Sir Toby again. Explore Iceland is here. That's our friend Kip, isn't it? That's going to be Kip. Hello, Kip. How are you doing? Lovely to have you here. Yellowbird is here. František is here. Hello. From Trebic. David Ross is here. C. Northway, while I'm thinking about it, have you ever done the Tennessee Waltz? It sounds better on one of them theatre organ sample sets, but it could be performed. It could. Shall we do the Tennessee Waltz? I love the Spike Jones version of the Tennessee Waltz. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and listen to it and have a laugh. Peter Haslinger is here from Slovakia. Oh, lovely. Lovely to have you here this evening. Good evening to you, my friend. FB, aka Diver Math, is here. Hello. Sandra Ross is here. Marcus B is here. Andrew Prince is here. Good evening. How was your birthday, Andrew? And I think that's pretty much it, isn't it? Pretty much it so far. Thank you very much for being here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. And actually, not many ladies in the chat tonight. So yes, if you're of the female persuasion and watching and able to chat, say hi. Right, there are now 16 tickets in there. So let's start by saying thank you to Michael B for his monthly donation. Thank you, Michael. Julie M for her monthly donation. Thank you, Julie. Stefan M joined us on Buy Me a Coffee. David S was there on PayPal. Andrew P on PayPal. Yellowbird on Buy Me a Coffee. Jeff Ford on Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you. Robert with 2 R's, with 3 R's, I suppose. Robert S on PayPal. Thank you very much. Martin on Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you. Jack Hi Jack, how are you? Oh Jack, haven't seen Jack Barnard for a long time. Lovely to see you, Jack. Thank you very much. There's Jack on PayPal. Thank you very much. Willie Galloway from Stirling in Bonnie, Scotland on PayPal. Hi Willie, how are you doing? Rue as well. Thank you Rue, lovely to hear from you and thank you very much indeed. The Platz Gang on Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you. Ingo, that's Bodensee-Horn on PayPal. Thank you. Jez on PayPal. Thank you very much indeed. And FB, Fabio on PayPal as well. Thank you so much indeed. Very kind of you all. Thank you. We are now at 16. We're about, ladies and gentlemen, to beat our record. If we get 3 more, that beats our record. So off you go. Thank you very much indeed. Very kind, very kind, very kind. According to this, I have a message in my inbox from the bank. It's the beginning of the month, so you get all your your stuff. Right. Okay. Fair enough. Lovely. Right. On with the show. The Tennessee Waltz. I do have the Tennessee Waltz in here, don't I? I was waltzing with my darling to the Tennessee Waltz. If you don't know the Spike Jones version of this, go and listen to it. It's absolutely deliciously wonderful. It's of course incredibly politically incorrect. In this day and age, it's being sung by two Jewish singers, but it's wonderful. Will the Tennessee Waltz work on a big romantic organ in the south of Germany? Let's find out. It's an amazing acoustic in this church, isn't it? The Tennessee Waltz, a nice fast version. Not Rod Stewart, Red Stewart wrote that. The Tennessee Waltz. Pee Wee King, I think, was the other one, wasn't it? It was a Pee Wee King song. Red Stewart was the guy that wrote that. I think that rings a bell. Yeah, the Tennessee Waltz. Go and listen to the Oy Vey. Go and listen to the Spike Jones version of that and have a good laugh. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. I used to be able to do a very good Lawrence Welk impression. Lawrence Welk. What can we do by Lawrence Welk? Remember Lawrence Welk? A one and a two and a... spontaneous. Let's see if I can remember this. Who the hell performed this? This was... can I remember this? This is completely spontaneous. It's just purely because I said wonderful, wonderful. That made me think of Lawrence Welk, which made me think of this tune, which I think was the Lennon Sisters. Tonight You Belong to Me. And I think Tonight Belong to Me, there's a sort of a version of it by Steve Martin and some female singer whose name escapes me, Bernadette, someone. Damn it, what was her name? And it's a very cute tune. Let me see if I can remember how this works. I used to sing this with a friend of mine years ago. See if I can remember it. This is completely spontaneous, not part of the program. See if it works. Something like that, wasn't it? Tonight, la 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 lily, la 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 la. Something like that. Yeah, something like that. Do you have bubbles to be blown all around? Yes, we need the bubbles, don't we? Stop the bubbles. I used to be able to do a very, very good Lawrence Welk impression. I can't anymore. I need to really get into it and think about it. You've got to end everything with a hum as well. And now we're going to sing everything ended like that. It's very, very strange. Well, he was Hungarian or something, wasn't he, Lawrence Welk? Something like that. But the best band ever on any television show ever, the Lawrence Welk Band, especially the rhythm section. His cousin was the drummer. Oh my God, he was an amazing swing drummer. Anyway, we digress. Back to the original show, 60s and 70s. And of course, we can't have the 60s. Why is my iPad about to die? That's not good. Do I have a charging cable for it? I don't. All right, I shall have to decrease the old brightness. We're going on to Peter Sellers now. Careful, Gartshore, careful, Gartshore. Don't. Right, if we're going to do the 60s, we can't, 60s and 70s, we can't ignore, is this the right, yes, no, that's the wrong version, damn it. That's the one we want, there we go. We absolutely have to have some pieces of music by that band, the British Invasion. That band. Actually, there were two British invasions. Haha. Who can tell me about the second British invasion? The first British invasion was, of course, the Beatles. And Matt requested this earlier, so we're going to play it. Help! I need somebody. Help! Not just anybody. Help! You know, I need someone. Help! It was a second British invasion. Who was responsible for the second British invasion? over to you. Not Cam, because we were talking about this not that long ago. Do I remember the Peddlers Trio? I don't remember the Peddlers Trio. That doesn't ring a bell, Jez. Tell me more. Help. All right, Matt, you requested it. You chipped in, so we do it. Here we go. Help. Help, help, help. The Beatles. Help. I need someone. Ah, all the fun of the fair. Yes. What are my personal connections to the Beatles? There are many. If you know the stories, you know the stories. If you don't need to. There are many. We had the Tennessee Waltz. Let's have a Norwegian waltz. Always remember, if you're playing Norwegian Wood, do not repeat the chorus after the third verse. Very important. Yeah, I know all about them. Was the second wave the Stones? No, it wasn't. The second wave was the Dave Clark 5. Remember Dave Clark? It was Dave Clark. There you are. Dave Clark and his band. That's a story for itself some other time. The Dave Clark and his band. What a crazy bunch they were. That was a very, very, very bizarre, brilliant band. A wonderful, wonderful. The singer and keyboard player was just astonishingly good. Talking of astonishingly good singers from the 60s, I think we have to have... we have to have this. Jez loves this tune. I love this tune. Back to the 60s, this one, and a no-name band. But nobody was mentioned on this band. It came out years later who all the people involved were and how famous they became in their own right, doing all sorts of things. But it was a no-name band. It was all put together, studio band, nothing else. Wonderful stuff. Love grows where my rosemary goes. If you get those wrong, it's love goes where my rosemary grows. It depends whether you're into your herbal plants or your lady's called Rosemary. It depends. Dum da dum da da dee dee ding. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I love that song. It's one of my favorites. When I'm driving around in the car, I've always got my iPhone attached via Bluetooth for the music, and it's always on some kind of shuffle. And I absolutely love it when that tune comes on. Now, at the moment, I'm driving around quite a lot, and my little daughter's in the back of the car with me, and she sings along to all the tunes. It's so much fun. We have so much fun together, and yeah, Absolutely wonderful. Tony Burrows, thank you very much, Jez. Tony Burrows is, I think he's still very much with us. But he doesn't sing very much anymore. I think his voice is ruined. I remember hearing that somewhere. It's gone midnight, ladies and gentlemen. I've been enjoying myself so much I've forgotten the time. So what shall we finish with tonight? What shall we finish with tonight? Let's go to somewhere completely different. And let's have another one of my favorite pieces of music, which takes me back to my childhood. All the Brits will recognize this tune because it was the theme tune to a very popular TV show back in the United Kingdom over many years. And the title changed every year, but the title music didn't. And most of you will already know what I'm talking about now. So Toby, ABBA. What about ABBA? Well, yes, ABBA, we have to have an entire evening just for ABBA because there's so much of them. We can't have everything in all the evenings. Now, for all the Americans in the audience, tomorrow is your fancy day, 4th of July. So on Sunday, we'll do a sort of an American night on Sunday. So get ready for that. I won't do it tonight because it's bad luck to do these things in advance. We'll do it after the fact. And the big question is, are we going to have a tuba concert tomorrow night for our Illuminati Gartshore Gang members? Yes, we are. So join me for that as well. That will be on the 4th of July. Oh, Carl has joined us for number 17. If we make it to 18, we match our record from last weekend, last Friday, or was it 2 Fridays ago now? I can't remember. If we make 19, or shall I say even 20, we are heading into record territory. You know what to do, ladies and gentlemen. The final piece of music, before we go into the encores and the end numbers, is a wonderful piece of music by Professor Billy Taylor with the catchy title, I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. That's quite a title. Normally shortened to I Wish I Knew. Very famous versions of it, Nina Simone. But the most famous version of them all is, of course, Mr. Billy Taylor himself. It's a wonderful piece of music and it sounds something like this. Thank you to the additionals this evening. That was Carl Kepner was number 17, Ingo was number 18, and Andrew P once again was number 19. So Andrew P and Ingo have chipped in twice tonight. Gosh, thank you so much indeed. Very kind of you. Very kind of you indeed. Can we hit 20? Come on, folks, let's make it 20. And we've done it. Thank you very much for this evening. It was fun. It was good fun this evening. My finger held out. It sort of bust open at the beginning and then it immediately healed over. And it's been fine ever since. So that's good. Not a drop of alcohol was consumed either to keep this evening's excitement going. Thank you for a wonderful Friday evening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. What are we going to finish off with? I don't think we can really finish off with... we can't finish really with Bye Bye Blues, can we? We have to finish with something different. Let's finish up with this. Yeah, this will get you. Let's get rid of that for a second, and yeah, let's have that. All right, let's have this. You weren't expecting this. See some of you tomorrow night for our tuba concert. If you're interested in tuba, join us up. Go and check out Buy Me a Coffee or all that kind of stuff. Join us for that. Otherwise, we'll see you on Sunday night for American night. Enjoy. Have a good weekend until then. See you later. the Bohemian Rhapsody, possibly the finest piece of pop music ever written. That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this evening's entertainment. I hope you had as much fun as I did playing it. All good fun indeed. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking us to number 22 this evening. So who joined us? Joe chipped in there, as did Dominic B. Who's Dominic B? Thank you, Dominic B. As did Joe again. So thank you very much to all of you for chipping in this evening. And yeah, thank you very, very much indeed. Very, very kind of you all. I wish you all a pleasant start to the weekend. And until then, I shall say bye-bye.